Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining our webinar on Tableau's new feature called Ask Data. My name is Corinna. I work as a consultant at the Information Lab Germany in Hamburg. The Information Lab is a partner of Tableau and Alteryx, and we focus on data analysis and data visualization. My job, for instance, is to give training for Tableau and help clients with their Tableau projects. And today we want to have a look at Ask Data. Ask Data is released with the Tableau Server version 2019.1 and is available on the Tableau Server as well as Tableau Online. Ask Data gives you the opportunity to analyze your data without having to be trained in building dashboards. So all you have to do is to type in an English sentence and Tableau gives you the answer as a graph depending on your data. This is possible due to natural language processing. What happens in the background is that the sentence that you typed in will be translated into a syntax from which Tableau draws a graph. So Tableau releases continually new features and drives new innovations. So this is one new field that Tableau dives into, and I think it's pretty interesting to see where it will go from here, but right now it's just at the beginning. So Tableau hopes to reach a wider audience that they currently have. Because nowadays only people who are trained to use Tableau Desktop and know how to work with data are using like data analysis. And here Tableau hopes to reach people who are currently not working with data analysis. So Ask Data happens on your Tableau server with data sources that you did upload to your server. So I think now you're curious to see how this looks like. So we jump on our the Information Lab Tableau server. And here I've uploaded a data source called World Indicators. And as you can see here, the first window that opens is called Ask Data. So here we have the information that the analysis is completed, that Tableau found 33 fields in our data source. And if you're familiar with working in Tableau Desktop, you see right away here on the left-hand side, you have all the fields separated in your dimensions and in your measurements, as you're familiar with. So what I can do here is I can hover over the fields. For example, here I hover over country. And again, as you know from Tableau Desktop, you see a little globus next to country. So Tableau did recognize this field is a geographical field. So here we have a sample data from values that are in these fields. Here you have the information about which fields are in your data and with which distribution. Here we have an equal distribution, but for example, if I hover over region, here you can see that the most countries in our data set are from Africa and less one from Oceania. So what we have here is this is a date field called survey. So here we have the information about the start value and the end value. So if you have the first look at your data, you get a really good feeling about how your data looks like. And if you have for instance, over the measurements, here you have the information about your minimum value, the maximum value, the average. how many nulls you have or how many unique values. And for instance, if you have, for example, a calculated field, here, for instance, you in the data source, you had only the life expectancy separated to female and male, and here you wanted to have the overall life expectancy. So you have here the information, how is this calculated field computed? So, okay, then let's start using Ask Data. So here we have the field, and for example, the first thing we want to know is what is how high is the population here in our data source. So what I can do is I start to type. I want to have the population total. So the field is called population total, and I want to have, here it gives me the suggestion to ask for the average, but I want to have the sum of the population, and I want to have it for every year in my data source. So my date field is called survey, so I type in the survey, and here the first suggestion we have is sum of population total by surveys year. So what I do is I click on this suggestion, and a new window pops up. And here, as you can see, we have our first graph. So this is the population of all countries in our data source. So in the year 2000, it was like, I think it's 6 billion. And in the year 2012, now we have 7 billion people. So now I want to have more detailed information. So I don't have to open a new sheet or to type in everything again. What I can do is, here I can add my more detailed questions. So for example, now I want to have the information about the population per region. So I start typing by region. And as you can see here, I have my Tableau did recognize what I was trying to say. I click on the suggestion, and what we get here is that the line that we saw before is now separated into the different regions. And what I can do is, here if I, for instance, click on Europe, I can highlight Europe, or I can for example, say keep only. So now I have only Asia. So, okay. So when I want to go back here, I have with one click I can go back to the line that I have before. And for example, now I only want to see the population for Germany. So I can type in for country Germany. So now Tableau gives me the suggestion, and here now we have Germany, and as you can see here, from 2011 now it goes a little bit down. So, okay, and this is how I can get familiar with my data. And here at the bottom you see we have sheet 1, and if we want to keep this graph and have a new graph, I can just click on this sign and open a new sheet, and I can start a new analysis. For example, now I want to have the average birth rate. And I want to compare it with the average infant mortality. So, and I hope that, yes, Tableau did recognize it. So I click on it. And now I get a scatterplot. So if you did a scatterplot in Tableau, sometimes what it does is that you have one single dot and you have to define how you want to split up the dots. But in this case, I just had to type in average birth rate and average infant mortality rate, and Tableau did recognize or gave me the option as a scatterplot for the best option to analyze the data. So for instance, here we can see a correlation between birth rate and infant mortality rate. But now if I want to have another measurement, I can change the measurement with clicking on this field. So now here I have all the fields that are in my data. For instance, here I can filter the data by type. So I want to have another number, and now I decide I want to see, instead of the infant mortality rate, I want to see the life expectancy. So the life expectancy, here we have it. I just click on it, click on accept, and now I have a new graph. And if I want to swap the X and the Y axis, here I can, with a simple click, swap my axis and have a new graph. Here again, we can see a correlation between these two measurements. So let's start a new sheet. For instance, what we have in our data, we have information about the tourism inbound and the tourism outbound. And here I want to analyze the how these two interdepend. So I start typing tourism inbound and tourism outbound. So click on it. Again, we get a scatterplot. What I can do is now, for instance, add a new detail. I want to have it by region. Click on it. Now we have a scatterplot for the region, which is a nice visualization, but maybe I want to have other visualizations. Maybe I don't want to have the first suggestion that Tableau gives me. So here on the right hand side, you can see Scatterplot, and here you can decide between different chart types. For instance, I can click on bar chart and see if this gives me more information, or what I could do is to make a heat map. For instance, now we have the tourism outbound on color, so the darker the color, the higher the outbound, and the tourism inbound on size, so the larger this field is, the higher the inbound. So I can click on tree map and see what it gives me here. Okay, so and here I can, with one single click, I can change the chart type. So, and of course, everyone loves maps in Tableau, which is a pretty cool feature. And of course, here with Ask Data, you have possibility to show your data as a map. So, as I showed you before, here country is a geographical field. So what I can do is, For instance, I want to see the CO2 emissions around the world. So what I can do is I want to have the average CO2 emissions by country as a map. So here we have average CO2 emissions per country as map. I click on it. And here we have a map. And as we can see here, the United States and China are those countries with the highest CO2 emissions. So, and I want to show you one last sheet. So, for example, now I want to have the average population by country. And now I want to have a filter. So I can use filter as well in Ask Data. So here I decide I want to have the average population by country, but only for those countries that have a population higher than 1 billion. So what I can do is I type in average population total by country greater than 1 billion. So I wait a second if Tableau recognizes what I'm trying to say. Here I typed in greater than. I think Tableau was not sure if I wanted to have at most or at least. So here I can decide I want to have a population at least 1 billion, click on it, and now here I get China and India. And now if I want to change the threshold here, I can click on the number. And here I have a slide where I can decide where my threshold should be. So for example, I make it a little bit more to the left, hit accept and see which countries I have. Okay, it's still those two, so I can go a little bit further down, click accept. So now I have more countries. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you on how to use Ask Data. But as I said, Tableau here is right at the beginning, so there's I think it's a pretty interesting step in a right direction, but there's still some work to do. For instance, where is it? Here, as you can see, the data source that I worked with was called World Indicators Edited, because the first version that I uploaded didn't work, because here you can see the date field was called year in the original version. And here Tableau gives you the message that this field is unsupported by Ask Data, because there are some confusions with if you're referring to this field in particular or to year. So there are some things that you have to keep in mind if you want to work with Ask Data. For instance, this is one of it, and yeah. what you have to be careful, and you still have to think critically about your data, because here we have some suggestions, and the first suggestion is to take the sum of the birth rate, and as you may know, it's not a logical thing to do to sum up rates. So all you have to do is to take the average of rates if you want to compare it with other countries or something like that. So here you have to keep in mind that that you have to think about what you are doing, what Tableau is computing in the background. Yes. So, and another thing that you could do is, if I click on a field, I can edit synonyms. For instance, here it does make sense, I hit on it, to make continent as a synonym, because here in the region we had Europe and we had Africa, and if someone is trying to type in the sentence, please give me the population per continent, here I can give Tableau the hint that when someone types in continent, he's referring to the field region. So, and now if you're curious to work with Ask Data and you don't have access to a Tableau Server version 2019.1 or higher, what you can do is click on the Ask Data homepage from Tableau, and here you have a demo. So if I click on it and start the demo, so here you have sample data sources that you could work with and try to play around a little bit with the data and get familiar on how to formulate your sentences that Tableau is able to translate these into a syntax. So I encourage you to just try it and make and get and yeah, just play with it, and maybe you can form your opinion on if you should use it or not. I think it's a very interesting step into the right direction, but again, I don't see it as a analysis tool that you could really work with day to day, because if you get more into data analysis, I think you would switch to Tableau Desktop, so you are have more control over what you are doing and what you analyze, what you are what you're computing. But I think it's a pretty good step for people that do not work with data analysis yet. So as a first step into Tableau, into data visualization. So that's everyone that I had to say. If you have any questions on Ask Data, or if you want to see anything again, we have the option that you could type in a question. But I think so far we don't have any questions. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the webinar. I hope you learned something new. I encourage you to try it yourself. And if you have a further question, then reach out to the Information Lab. And I hope you have a great day. See you soon.